All right, welcome everybody. Thank you for coming out. Got a little smaller attendance than we wanted, but we appreciate y'all taking time. I hope there's a couple people watching online as well on the YouTube channel. Michael, we appreciate you setting this up and letting us use the facilities. Made it real easy to kind of set this thing up and hopefully foster a little bit of communication between everybody working in the watershed and the city. Just a little bit of background. This is an outreach meeting for the Rotten Bayou watershed. We have the actual watershed up on the map, and it mostly encompasses 90% of Diamondhead and then rural areas in Harrison and Hancock counties as well. We'll take a few moments to walk up, and at the end of the presentation that we walk through, and we'll discuss where exactly the watershed is and what problems we're working on and what we're looking at, and some of the initial outreach as well. So with that, let's talk about some introductions. Here we're subcontractors to digital engineering with Bruce and Christina, and they've contracted us to actually do the plan itself for Rotten Bayou. Cindy and myself are both, I'm the project manager and she's kind of the technical lead. Jennifer and Beth are working on the project as well in different capacities. Christina, I'll pass it over to you to kind of talk about big picture program management as well as you and Bruce's involvement.
Good afternoon. I'm Christina Shirley with Digital. Bruce Newton is right over here too. He's working on this, and Maureen Anderson with the county. Most of you guys either met or know. That's who we're talking to about all this stuff the most. So a little bit about the stormwater program for the county. Wagner did a report back in 2019. They looked at the whole county and identified like 95 projects, drainage projects, did an initial assessment, preliminary scope, came up with about $67 million worth of work in the county, Diamondhead, Bay St. Louis, and Waveland. And since then, Digital came on and we're the program managers to implement that plan. So we've gone out and inspected each of the sites, done our assessment, and assessed I guess 8 other projects. I think maybe a couple more have been added since this presentation was put together. And we've come up with a preliminary priority list, and we're beginning to work on that list right now. And we've gotten, on the next slide, we've got 5 projects that we are under design right now. Next page. Okay, sorry. So yeah, 5 projects are under design. We're close to being able to hopefully bid those maybe beginning of next year. And we have 3 projects that are being funded by NRCS, and we've gotten the agreement, so hopefully those will begin design soon. And we've been looking for funding. The county has agreed to match the city of Diamondhead's $2 million on drainage projects, so we're gonna have $4 million for Diamondhead total. And we're looking for funds, Tidelands, Go Mesa for a bunch of projects. And as we identify more funding, we're working towards the next round of projects to start working on and get done in the county. So that's it overall.
Yeah, so let's talk about why y'all are here and kind of what we are hoping to facilitate moving forward. I'm going to throw out the term stakeholders. That is a very popular term. You've probably heard it used interchangeably for a lot of different meanings. But what does it mean to you in this watershed plan? Stakeholders, I'm going to read EPA's definition right here. Stakeholders are those who make and implement dictations, those who are affected by decisions made, and those who can assist or impede implementation of those decisions. So really you're here because you have either a vested interest in the watershed, you live in the watershed, or you care about what's going on in the watershed. And Christina talked a little bit about funding. That's one of the big components of this plan, is we want to put this in a format that EPA will accept funding for all the different projects. So they have a handful that they're working on now that have been prioritized. Hopefully this plan can take the ones that haven't been prioritized but have been identified, and we can help source funding through EPA 319, EPA 6217, which is the coastal aspect, different funding mechanism, and there's various other ones with NRCS and different aspects as well. But that's one of the key fundamentals of this plan itself, is opening it up to funding moving forward for the long-term projects and the intermediate-term projects. Stakeholders can be anybody from landowners to county representatives to city staff to federal agencies to American tribes, business owners, nonprofits, religious organizations, schools, soil and water conservations, things of those nature. If you know anybody that might be a stakeholder, feel free to share this project and any sort of material that's been given to you. This is supposed to be facilitating conversations with those that are in the watershed, so by no means is this information to keep to yourself. Forward this on, talk about it. You all are already probably doing that. I know a lot of you are in the consulting world. So just keep talking about the project and sharing this information. The more we can reach out to and kind of get in this network of communication, the more informed decisions we can make. So let's take a look at the different stakeholders. We sent out a survey a couple months back, an online survey, and I can provide that as well to kind of kick off this process. We got 9 people responding from that. We sent it out to 46 individuals that we identified. We can send that out to even more. We still have the link open, and I can provide that at the end of the meeting. But the stakeholders that did answer the survey range from basin managers to building inspectors, roadway managers to local nonprofits, and to individual residents within the county. Let's explore some of those issues that were uncovered. A lot of this is stuff that we're familiar with and stuff that everybody in this room is familiar with. Everybody's familiar with the ongoing efforts that Diamondhead is making within the city to improve drainage. Everybody's kind of familiar with the City Hall meeting y'all had a couple weeks back that's dove into some of that sort of stuff. So what this is this is an avenue for us to explore other issues that might not have been seen. Michael Riso mentioned that he has the website available so you can submit a form online and talk about a flooding issue. Hopefully this is another avenue for citizens to submit problematic areas as well. So some of the 4 kind of major categories were local nuisance flooding, more regular stormwater maintenance, a need for a hydrologic study, and preservation of rotten bayou for future generations, which I think everybody can agree with is a paramount thing we want to do in this watershed. Another one of the questions that we asked in the survey is we want to get a feel for what people think and interpret this watershed as. So we want to understand where people are coming from so we can more relate to them and we can get better buy-in and implementation on the plan. What is the first thing that comes to mind when you hear rotten bayou? Here are some of the answers. I won't read them off. I'll read a few of them. Home is a big one. Beautiful and peaceful backwaters, Mississippi wildlife that should be preserved for future generations. Diamondhead, water quality, stormwater, things like that. Really all this does is it reinforces the need to protect Diamondhead and to try and improve the water quality in the area and try and help fund some of these projects that will do just that. So along with all these positives, there are some comments regarding the improvements that could be made, and hopefully we'll shine a little bit of light on those. Another question is, what do you want to see improved? We asked specifically. There was 3 or 4 sites that came out of that question, and there was things like enhanced stormwater management, improved drainage, minimized flooding, common things that we'll keep touching on throughout this meeting that we know we want to focus on in the plan and hopefully improve. Again, there's a lot of efforts being undertaken by the city. We want to kind of take that and we want to expand that to the rest of the watershed and see that if we can get all the rural areas in Hancock County, see if we can help get those areas identified and fixed up as well. Another landholder or stakeholder suggestion was land management improvement. So improve the management of wetlands and associated uplands. That all ties into water quality, improve wildlife, preserve in its natural state and maintain. That kind of ties back to the maintain Diamondhead and maintain the rural areas and rotten bayou itself that runs through the county. Dredging was another common theme that we kind of saw along here was siltation in different channels and bayous. The next question I want to talk about is, do you know of any problematic areas? Here's kind of the overview of what was uncovered from at least our initial stakeholder survey. A little bit hard to see, but there are 5 sites that are identified. I won't read them off, but they're up there, and I can provide you with a copy of this as well. Along with the master plan that Wagner did a couple years back and identified the 96 sites, and along with the ongoing efforts from the city to identify more sites, here are 5 sites that were uncovered from our stakeholder survey that will kind of add to the list and get a working list going and making sure everybody's on the same page. And that will be included in the plan and talked about and discussed and provided implementation measures to improve those issues. Here's a link to the survey. Again, I can provide it. Hopefully we'll have a little session to talk about it, but there's a link to the actual survey. And then another question is there anything else you would like to discuss related to Rotten Bayou watershed in this management plan? Here's the 4 kind of common themes and 4 answers that kind of stuck out and were worth mentioning. A need for a hydrology study, which is ongoing and is currently underway. Best management practices for construction development, and that the city of Diamond has continued to make good efforts for the implementation of the old plan and continue to do that and reinforce some of those implementation measures that will be integrated into this plan so we're not starting from scratch. So let's take a look at the next steps. Moving forward, we're going to develop solutions to identified problems. Right now, we're sitting in the watershed characterization phase of this management plan, and we're going to start developing some solutions. From there, we'll start working on an implementation schedule, and then we'll actually start working on how we go about implementing that and making real-life changes. Again, I'll circle in the funding aspect because that's going to be a really key aspect of this plan that's going to help us out find some dollars to help these projects. Next, we'll finish the draft report and we'll provide it to the county for review. After that, there will be at least 1 or 2 more of these meetings to really loop in a broader range of stakeholders, cast a bigger net, and get more people that are residents, business owners. We have a few of them here, homeowners, things of that nature, to come in and kind of get their buy-in and see what they are, how they are interpreting this plan, and try and loop everybody in that we can. We'll continue to pursue funding options, and again, to keep everybody updated. We'll try and reach out and we'll try and make some more social media posts possibly. We'll get something like that going. Whatever we identify is the best way to communicate with you, the stakeholders, and with the public in the watershed. So with that, I'm going to kind of move into our question section. Does anybody have any questions on the PowerPoint? Yes. Yeah, so this is when this PowerPoint was put together, I know there's a handful of other sites that Christina and the city have identified, but that's primarily within the city. There is, I want to say, 2 within the county. And so that's kind of a natural segue before you talk about those projects. I'm going to step away from the mic. But this is the idea behind this. These maps, you can get up here in a second and we'll talk about these. But this is that map reiterated over here. And Christina has keyed in at least one of the new spots that has been identified that when this PowerPoint was put together that wasn't identified. And we're hoping that if you have any sites that you want to talk about, if you have anything you want to discuss, come up here. We have Sharpies, we have sticky notes. Put a dot on the map and let's talk about it. And let's get it on the list, the master list that we can all look at. So every consulting firm that's working within the city or within the county can see this information. This isn't a private list that we're trying to gather and keep to ourselves. We know that we're not going to be able to do all this work. So we want to spread it out and we want to get it out there for everybody to kind of start building the list on. So that's the big idea here. Christina has one dot there. I know there's another one up here. Christina, is that right? By Super Oak. So there's site then, that Kelsey, you actually provided a couple months back. Yeah, there it is, right there. And that one has the county delineation, so. What else? Any other questions? Figure out solutions. So we'll start drafting up one. We'll do some really high level solutions for those problems, including possibly some OPC. But then another big aspect that the EPA requires is models to support it. And that's a little different than just standard H&H, and you can kind of go about it a couple different ways, but there's a really cost-effective way to do it. This is kind of our approach right now. It's not your traditional H&H model. It has to deal with water quality, coefficient-based modeling. But really, you want to take a project and you want to show, improve the EPA, why that's going to improve the water quality. Why you, we'll call it deserve the funding or not. Does that make sense? Yeah. And so we'll come up with proposed solutions to those. We'll come up with an implementation plan and schedule. And then we'll take that and that'll kind of be the final draft that we'll take to the county. Correct. Yeah.
The modeling described, is that strictly looking at the water quality, or are we looking at drainage as it relates to flooding as well?
It's kind of more the former.
Outside culvert, that kind of thing.
Yeah, kind of more the former. There's the modeling that goes with that and that you have to plug in, but you have to be able to prove to EPA and MDEP that you're improving and reducing the sediment load, which is, there's a flow associated with that, huge, right? And that's your kind of traditional modeling that you're talking about with upsizing the culvert. I have a culvert that can take 200 CFS, but that's only a one-year storm, right? In this area, I want a culvert that can handle 400 CFS or a 25-year, 50-year storm, whatever it is. So that is a component of the modeling that I'm referring to, the water quality model. Does that answer your question? Not really.
Can you just tell me, if it benefits nutrient production, can it also address quality?
Yes.
So, potentially.
It definitely can, especially.
And that's your sweet spot, what you just brought up, Jim. That's what you're trying to do is essentially bridge that gap between EPA water quality issues, which makes your projects fundable, and then generally a more direct municipal government concern of drainage effectiveness, and try to marry those together. Those are gonna be kind of the best, most fundable projects where you're gonna be able to leverage federal dollars. So if we develop outcomes or potential solutions through our H&H modeling, doing, for instance, in watershed, that can marry up to potentially your sediment load.
Yes, and so that's another big aspect of this meeting is our interface and discussing that kind of shared efforts and joint efforts that there's no reason for us to go behind and model that watershed if you guys have really high quality data and models that we can leverage. So that's a big function of the plan is getting all the key stakeholders in this room to start the conversation, figure out who needs what sort of thing. Any other questions?
It sounds like the whole Rutherford watershed will have some type of modeling.
I mean, not necessarily. If we don't identify a flooding issue in the northeasternmost part of the watershed on a tributary to Rotten Bayou, it may not have it. And now that water eventually ends up in Rotten Bayou. So if you're doing modeling along Rotten Bayou, then indirectly, yes, but directly, I would say no.
My intent is to have the whole system.
Good. That's what we can help with that, with this plan. And
If the council says that.
yeah, sure. Sure.
I see the benefits.
I do, yeah, I do as well. I come from the modeling background, so I agree with you on that. All right. Ben, put you on the spot. You got any projects and modeling you want to share?
Just, you know, we're right in the middle of H&H modeling for watershed A, which is 435 acres. The outcomes of that are going to identify, potential retention areas and bonus areas. The primary purpose though is reducing flooding, structure flooding, and then moving into streets and waterways.
Awesome.
So we'll have some outcomes later this month, early next year, high-level projects, and then delve in more. And we'll go over OPCs and identify specific improvement projects.
Awesome.
Just the red area right now, the map, the red.
Yeah.
I work with Covington Civil and
We have Cindy with Sticker, Bruce, being a digital.
Okay.
Roland does a lot of hardware stuff for us.
How many of these projects are in watershed A that we would?
I have the map that has a little, just that purple, to the right of that colorful one, is all the projects in Diamondhead. With flooding that happened during the flood.
But not just the flag.
No, everything. Yeah. And that's all in the EIS is digital. Another real issue, especially when you get down to water quality, is erosion.
Sure.
So Diamondhead was created 50 years ago to put ditches behind people's houses. There's a 10-foot drainage easement on the rear, the front lines should be about 20 feet. And over 50 years, these ditches have gotten bigger, especially when they start getting loose sand.
Sure.
Continue to erode. Which ends up going downhill. And then they're gonna tend to bite.
Sure.
And it's happening miles on miles. How do we address it, including possible potential legal action?
Sure.
That's the thing. I don't even have a dollar number on it.
Sure.
And it may even be if we need more easy.
Yep. All right.
It's really not one of the projects.
It's miles. Yeah. We can make it a project.
Some of that is can be.
They are,
an age.
there's a lot of different graphics and all that kind of stuff.
Right, so to the point of, think about the, probably New Orleans, and other ones that do great major canals,
Sure. Yeah.
transfer water, we're getting to that point.
Understood.
And I'm not an engineer, I'm just, trying to check. But it's a problem.
Okay. Thanks for sharing. We at this point now we can kind of open it up into we'll call it the interactive session. And if anybody hasn't, if you want to stand up and mark up the board, if you don't, we can talk about it as well. We'll kind of take a second here. Christina, do you have another one that you want to add up there? Yeah, there we go. Yeah, if you don't mind.
I know the county's the one that's leading this, starting with the Wagner Force and pushing this thing, but talking about this water, we think somehow we've got to engage more, yet the problem is identified in Harrison County and bring them to the table. Maybe it's been done more, I don't know about it.
not necessarily definitively yes on the flood damage ordinance, but it is something that if it's brought up and it's a priority by stakeholders, then yes, it will be included to some extent. Now, whether or not we go to a full-blown review of St. Louis's plans or Waveland's ordinance and, you know, how deep and detailed it gets is not, it remains unclear depending on how high of a priority of implementation is, right? And it's also identifying it so you can go a little more into detail on it down the road, right? Does that make sense?
It does.
All right, we're kind of wrapping up our meeting and at least the canned presentation. Again, I encourage you to come up and put a dot on here or further talk about these problems, but we'll be sticking around here for a little bit and discussing. And if anybody has any concerns or questions or just wants to talk, feel free to come up. Well, let's hang out after.
Maureen, when it comes to the county's list of 95%, 95, y'all come up with a way to prioritize it. How is the stuff being driven to the top of, all right, like for me, my little list here keeps growing. Whose houses are flooded? Who's getting water inside? You know, that's unacceptable in my world. So how do we fix that? There's still a list this long, at 14+ million different Diamondhead.
Sure.
That's already, identified 950 specifically. But the person who screams the loudest, or the person who's house, little lady who didn't even tell us her house was flooded. To me, I wanna see some type of weighted average, so it takes the personality out and says the math tells you this goes to the top.
Sure.
Does that make sense? Certainly, yes.
It did.
Well, and to be honest though, I got here in January 2018. If you go look at the rainfall, 18, 19, and 20, the Diamondhead was under our average, normal average of 63 inches. But this year we're at 115 inches. With many heavy rain events that were in here in short periods of time. And all of a sudden,
Sure, that's good to know. There's definitely going to be a much bigger outreach component on this plan, so I think that's potentially a beneficial relationship.
Here's a loaded question for Mike. Should the city think about doing a bond issue for $20 million? Give it all at one time, and you don't go have to go looking for 5 years. It's easy for me to say. You run for office? No, but it's.
That's why it's easy for you to say.
Yeah, I agree, that's just it.
I believe, in my opinion, once projects are identified, and my little spreadsheet that I've just been maintaining, started with the Wagoner project, and then we've gotten more, and keep adding projects to it. It's a working time. If we can get to a point of, all right, this is gonna be $25 million. All right, well, how much do we have? Well, right now we got this 2 million, that 2 million. We're hoping the state does some matching with their bucket of money, and where's that put us? And the shortfall, I believe all funding sources need to be on the table. Personally. That's the thing.
And Mike, what
Well,
about?
is that an assessment? Is that a bond? How do you pay for that bond? Is it, do you charge 2 or 3 mils for debt payment? I don't know the answer on that, but I think as we identify all that, if we can go, what's gonna fund that bond? The millage thing, or some type of assessment.
Where is it?
Thing. 2 million.
And then we heard.
We haven't figured out how to commit.
There's greater interest.
I'm all, I have no problem writing a letter. I mean,
I just think that
between the
there's a
city and
high
the county money, that's
possibility.
4 million, well, then that's 4 million.
I just think there's a high possibility that almost half of what you need to go, because it's gonna go through this stage with those funds. Because there are some that, more than one go with that, of course, if that's what matching, that's what we. And that is what they want to do.
But
Like
I
a
think,
carry that, doesn't go in and out, just to get rid of it. I think our goal is to see.
before the 33rd, seven, still open.
It's not done.
Okay, appreciate the comments. We're about 14 minutes until the turn of the hour, so feel free to hang around. Do we have a time we need to be out of here, Michael? Okay.
No, you're paying rent, that's good.
Okay.
On money hours, unlike my attorney was with.
So we would ask that everybody make sure that you sign in, because we'll be following up with folks, afterwards, to make sure that any of your thoughts or ideas or other projects and stuff. If you get the agenda, there's also a link to the survey on the bottom of the agenda.
Yep.
You said you were gonna send this PowerPoint to the people on this?
If you like it, yeah, I can.
Did the county have any type of website or any type of data anywhere? I was supposed to do.
I didn't know that those songs. It was called the Popcorn King, Cowboy Girl.
No, I think that's it. Feel free to go. Feel free to mark up the board. I couldn't get one person to do it except for Christina, who I bribed. Ben.